begin our service with military honors. I'm going to ask those who are able to rise. If you are currently serving in the military or have been honorably discharged, I'm going to ask you to perform, if you wish, the hand salute. Thank you.
Friends, we gather together this morning to celebrate the life and to honor the memory of Harold Smith. Harold's family so very much appreciates your presence here with them. Your presence offers them a great deal of comfort and support.
Mismor David, Adonai roi lo echsar, Minote sheyarbit sen yame menuchot yanachaleni, Nafshi yishovev, Yanacheni v'magle tzedek l'ma'an shemo, Gam ki chelech begetz al mavet, Lo yirah ki ata imadi, Shiftecha umishantecha, ema yenachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan, neged tzorirai, Tishanta vashamen roshi, kosiri vaya, ach tov chesed yirdifuni, kol yamei chayai, v'shaveti b'veit Adonai, le'orech yamim.
Adonai ma'adam v'teda ehu ben enosh v'chashvehu. O Lord, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath. Our days are as a passing shadow. We come and we go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, in the evening it fades and it withers. You cause us to turn to dust, saying, return, you mortal creatures. Would that we were wise, that we understood whither we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted and behold the upright. They shall have peace. Let us take comfort now together in the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Esa'enai el heharim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shemayim va'aretz. I lift mine eyes unto the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. The protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and your coming, now and forever. Kohelet, who is the author of the biblical book of Ecclesiastes, reminds us that for everything there is a season, a time for every experience under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Harold Smith died this past Friday morning, just 2 months shy of his 97th birthday. He lived a long life, a life filled with tragedy and other challenges, but also a life of accomplishment and caring. We will miss him. Harold was born and raised in Cleveland, graduated from the fabled Glenville High School, and immediately upon graduation enlisted in the Marines. The year was 1942, and World War II was raging in Europe and in the Far East. Harold served his country with loyalty and with dignity. He returned home to his wife, worked hard at a variety of jobs that were often challenging, but often gratifying, raised his 2 children with his devoted wife Shirley, and then he retired. This then is the barest outline of the facts of Harold's life. But when I met with his family this past Monday, it became immediately clear to me that these facts do not begin to reckon with the person Harold Smith actually was. Well, who was he? The family's answer to this question can be epitomized in one evocative word: complicated. Our father and grandfather and father-in-law, I was told, was a very complicated person. And so by unpacking this one word, we can, I believe, uncover the depth and the complexity of who Harold Smith was. We can begin with his service in World War II. After completing basic training, Harold was shipped off to the war theater in the Far East, and there his unit engaged in actual combat. Now, as it happens, while he was at Okinawa, he contracted scarlet fever, and he was removed from the war zone in order to recover before being sent back to the front lines. And when he finally was sent back, he was shocked to learn that his entire unit had been wiped out, every person killed. He was his unit's only survivor. And as if this weren't enough to rattle him, and rattle him permanently, Harold was sent sometime later to China to participate in the invasion of Japan, at which point the atomic bomb was dropped. Did Harold hear the sound, or feel the tremors, or glimpse, if only in his mind's eye, the mushroom clouds? Here was yet another of the successive shocks to Harold's system and to his well-being. As if to reflect the lasting traumas of his wartime experiences, Harold once responded to his son Louis's question, "Did you actually ever kill anybody?" Harold's response, a quizzical look and a comment. "What do you think? This was war." And as if these blows weren't enough, Harold was shocked to learn that his adored and admired older brother Gerald was shot down during a World War II battle, and Gerald's body was never recovered. This sent Harold's mother into a deep and lasting depression, a depression from which she never recovered. And so Harold, the only remaining son, was left without a brother and with a severely damaged parent. Lifelong trauma from a war that was never really over, most especially in the minds and the hearts and the nightmares of those who endured and were doomed to relive this trauma over and over again and its grievous suffering. And this is what this smart, physically imposing, and patriotic Marine was left with for the rest of his life. And quite naturally, these scars had an impact on Harold's family and later on his caregivers. For he could be emotionally needy, feisty, resistant, and angry. And when he was in a bad mood, he could be persistently negative and belligerent. And yet, it was Harold's good fortune that in his wife of 67 years, Shirley, Harold had a sympathetic, caring, patient, and loving wife. A wife who understood, deeply understood, both factually and emotionally, the traumas that Harold had experienced and how they permanently had shaped the person he was. Indeed, throughout these 67 years, Harold regularly found comfort in his conversations with Shirley. And even after she had died in 2015, Harold confided that he still continued to have conversations with her. And yet, being the complex person that Harold was, his story has another side. A side I have come to feel, which may appropriately be called heroic. For having returned from the war, Harold went on with his life. He attended Fenn College here in Cleveland, where he studied accounting, though he had to leave school after 2 years in order to support his wife and his 2 growing children. At first, Harold worked in the office as the right-hand man to the owner at Central Floor Products. He was led to believe that he would be the one to take over the business one day. But alas, this never materialized. And so he went to work at the Jacobson clothing store in downtown Cleveland. There he served as a bookkeeper for more than 25 years. When Jacobson's closed, he continued to work for another 10 years or so. And during his long career, Harold developed a keen knowledge of how retail works, as well as an expertise in men's clothing, and how Harold loved working with his customers and with his colleagues. And it is here that we can see how Harold's apparently innate capacity for relationship manifested itself and blossomed. How he loved hanging around other people and working in downtown Cleveland. Now, Harold was also a deeply devoted family person. He doted on his parents, called them every evening after returning home from work. And he and Shirley took them and Louis and Jerry, when you were kids, to lunch regularly. Moreover, Harold truly enjoyed family picnics and family dinners with Shirley's family. Indeed, Harold met and gladly fulfilled his family responsibilities. And I learned the other day from Harold's daughter-in-law, Susan, that when you had lost your own father, that you knew that you could find a kind of father figure in Harold who was solicitous and comforting to you. and how Harold doted on his beautiful grandchildren, taking them out to lunch regularly and making French toast for them in Shirley's and his apartment. And when his granddaughter Deborah went to him to interview him for a school project, she found him open and responsive and willing to talk to her about his life. Harold Smith is survived by his son Louis and his daughter Jerry, by his daughter-in-law Susan and his son-in-law Harry, by his grandchildren Allison, Ashley, Miriam and Derek, Deborah and Matt, and Reed and Jamie, by his great-granddaughter Briley, and by his nieces and nephews Barry, Jay, Marlene, Andy, Steve, and Jane. He was predeceased by his wife Shirley, by his parents Lillian and Alton, his brother Gerald, his mother-in-law Florence, his brothers-in-law Lou and Paul, and his sisters-in-law Mildred and Litz. And Harold's family wants to express their deepest thanks to the Menorah Park Friedman team for the care and patience that they showed, especially during the COVID epidemic. And most especially to Donna Eikowitz, who was the caregiver for Harold and Shirley. Donna, Harold's family told me, treated him as if he were her own father, taking him to lunch at Myers and Pearl's place, to the piazza for music, and to the library to work on puzzles. No matter how negative Harold could be, Donna always had a smile on her face and helped him to look on life's brighter side. Indeed, Harold Smith was a complicated person. There was a dark side to him, a result of the many traumas he so indelibly experienced throughout his life. And yet there was also a bright side to him in his care and concern for his family, in the way in which he met his responsibilities, in his deep and abiding pride in being a Marine, and in his capacity for affability in his interactions with his colleagues and his customers. All who loved and admired him will never forget him. Zichrono livracha. His memory will always be our blessing. Amen. O God of life, amid the ceaseless tides of change which sweep away the generations, your love remains to comfort us and to give us hope. Around us are life and death, decay and renewal, the flowing rhythm that all things obey. Our life is a dance to a song that we cannot hear. Its melody courses through us for a little while, then it seems to cease. Whence the melody, and whither does it go? In darkness as in light, we turn to you, the source of life and the answer to all of life's mysteries. As you are able, I ask you now to please rise for the El Mole Rachamim.
El Mole Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, המסמנו חנכנה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, את נשמת חיים בן אלתר, שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן תחי מנוחתו. אנא ברחמים אסתירהו, בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, ותצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר אמן.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Harold Smith, our loved one who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And let us say together, Amen. You may be seated. This concludes our service, which will continue now at graveside at the Mount Olive Cemetery. Once again, on behalf of the family, we so much appreciate your presence here with us this morning.
I do. I'm going to put them in with the box.